right. Well, folks, today I just want to talk about the finishing up of the season. It's, middle of October right now, and my garden is basically ready to be put down for the year. Today I just want to talk about how great of a season it was. This was a pilot year, and as far as what I was seeing coming off the farm, I took out probably hundreds of pounds worth of produce this year, and that is exciting in itself. And I learned a lot of um, gardening tricks of the trade, and learning a lot about how transportation is a key piece to produce, and how that factors into a lot of our costs. And just learned um, stuff from, let's say, wintering varieties, from, let's say, late seasonal like kale, how that compares to planting, to like sorrel. Like sorrel has been just like going like gangbusters all year this year, and that's a perennial crop. Whereas like a tomato, it's just an annual. And what type of space does it take up in a garden? Um, then coming to, let's say, leafy greens, chard, for instance. When the right time of the year to plant certain produce is that's the finesse, and that's what thousands of years of evolution and observations will give you, is individuals who have the capacity to do that at a high success rate. So overall, I'm super happy with what has turned out here. Um, the design, I think, worked pretty well. Um, there were some components where I think the sun was traveling through, and part of the garden just didn't get enough sun, and that showed, like specifically the cherry tomatoes. Um, and there's some things that just couldn't stop producing enough. Like my tomatoes, I probably have at least 60 pounds worth of tomatoes that came off of 10 plants, and I'm quite happy about that. So certainly could have been more, but for a first year, I call it a win. Not having consistent watering was definitely altered a lot of kind of my data. And my starting soil, which I think overall was pretty good, since we started with just a lawn. I didn't put too much compost into the ground, and I think for next season, just developing the soil as I am going to be doing, I'm going to expect things to just get better and better on this plot here. So in in reality, it takes about 3 years for soil to get to where you really want it to be, and you can do that through a slow process of integrating certain nitrogens and organic matter off of the garden, or you can really expedite things by um, putting in fertilizers and composts to get immediately to where you want your soil to be. So um, next year, I think I'm going to put some effort into the compost components to really get that data dialed in. And of course, everything's already built out, so a lot of labor um, I won't have to do next year. Another thing that I definitely um, feel I learned in this experience is just how to protect the produce. But I learned that I had a very little amount of noxious animals coming into the garden this year. And a lot of it had to do with the hawks and the resident cat that's on this property. And they did an amazing job of keeping rabbits out. But if I did, forget to keep that gate closed, then I would find some things go down. So, this is like part of farming that everyone goes through, that I was fortunate not to have a lot of. But the attention of the hunters around here took care of some of our noxious animals. The other thing that happened was, a lot of the produce that I was, depending on just didn't come out when, or even at all, as I had hoped to. We had something come on in, it was either burrowing larvae, or we had some form of insect coming, like grasshoppers, and cutting off the tips. But all of my beans definitely were non-existent this year because of just the clippings that had happened during the course of the year. My cantaloupe and my watermelon, they all kind of petered out real quickly this year. My spaghetti squash went out really early this year. So a lot of my wintering produce that I was banking on just never produced this year. Also learned a lot and just tested with like just different kinds of mildew and different toxins to leaves. And my cucumbers, awful this year. I hardly got anything off my cucumbers, even though I had about 10 different plants growing. All in all, there were some huge gains in the farm and some huge losses. And it gives me a lot of hope for next year that I'll be able to recalibrate certain things that I feel are easy fixes, and then just be very cautious about where I plant things for the second season. So a lot of learning that's going to go on, a lot of new types of identification that help me, grow as a urban farmer, and I'm looking forward to building off of that for next year. So the second spot that wasn't utilized this year was this back area behind the trees that you see behind me. Because the funds were designed to build out what we did this year, funds will be used next springtime of next year, where we're going to oculate the ground and bring in some wood to generate our own mushroom garden, which I'm pretty excited about. Okay, so behind me is where we were going to have our raspberries, cranberries, strawberries, of the likes we're going to have over here. We didn't put them in this year just because it wasn't part of our budget. 2021, I think we will see that alongside the mushroom expansion, we'll also be bringing in rows of perennial fruits, and that will be an exciting addition for 2021. All right, folks, thanks for joining me this season. It's been one heck of a 2020 and one heck of a season of gardening here at the farm. And I look forward to 2021, where we hope to go bigger and use even more space that we have available here, and potentially even build out into our very own space. All right, we'll see you next year. Bye.